Hi Internet, welcome to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel, and welcome to Greg's 14 Adventures, a weekly vlog where I discuss my journey through Final Fantasy XIV as a first-time player. I beat A Realm Reborn back in 2022, and I'm finally finishing up the rest of the game. These vlogs are documenting my journey. If you like these videos and want to support their continued production, the best way to do that is to like the video, share it on a relevant social media site like Reddit, and leave a comment. And don't forget to check out the playlist of previous episodes, linked in the description and pinned comment. Thanks, pal. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Greg. Hope you're doing well, hope you're doing great, hope that everything in your life is going the way you want it to, and hope you're able to follow your dreams and whatever makes you happy. I want to begin this vlog with a brief correction from last week. I was kind of mixing up my Japanese mythology a little bit. So while Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu are a moon god and sun goddess, I was probably thinking of Orihime and Hikobishi in terms of the lore about the lovers who are fated to be destined and not able to meet. The main players in the Tanabata celebration, and probably throwing in a bit of Izanagi and Izanami in as well. So mixing up my Japanese mythology a little bit, so I wanted to make a correction. If I make mistakes in these vlogs and you point it out, I will try to make corrections in the next video, or at least respond in the comments and say, oopsie, my bad. I'm not making these vlogs to be the be-all, end-all authority of Final Fantasy XIV or Japanese mythology. I'm basically just a guy talking into a microphone unscripted. A guy who tries to get things right, of course. Nobody wants to spread misinformation unless you're, a right-wing hack. In general, I, try to get things right. And if I don't, I try to own up to it and get it right in the next video. These vlogs are meant to be a, documentation of my personal journey. And they're meant to be sort of unscripted diary entries, with notes, so I don't forget what I want to talk about, but they're meant to be unscripted, off the cuff, casual conversation. And so when you do something like that, obviously you're going to get things wrong. But the reason that I'm doing these is also so you can correct me, so I can learn more about 14. And so if there's something that I miss, or something that, goes over my head, someone in the comments can say, oh, Greg, did you mean this? Or I think this is what you're missing from this. And that actually makes this entire experience way better, because rather than just me assuming I know everything, I'm talking about it, and then through the back and forth being like, oh, so that's what you got from this thing. Oh, that makes me look at it in a new light, and then I end up liking it more, or sometimes liking it less. But I think that conversation, that back and forth, really helps me appreciate this game way more. And so, yeah, please, if I make a mistake, come at me in the comments. Politely, of course. Luckily the people who, point out the mistakes in the live chat, they're people that I know and they're chill and I like them. So yeah, let me know if I make a mistake, but, even if there's just a disagreement of hey, I like this part for this reason, or if you want to agree with me and say, oh, Greg, you're so right. Yeah, I like that part too. Definitely feel free to tell me that as well. Really, it's a casual conversation with your buddy Greg about Final Fantasy XIV and whatever else comes up in the discussion of Final Fantasy XIV. So yeah, hit me up in the comments. Let's chat about the game. So I began my 14 playing this week with finally making myself 2 new retainers, one for my main character Lito and one for my alt character Greg Troyan. Once again, basing retainers off my cats. We have Shadow, based off a cat of mine who unfortunately passed a few years back, and Cloud, based off a cat of mine who is my sweet little princess who hangs out with me every day. So made some new retainers because, storage is necessary. So glad I finally got around to doing that. But then after that, it was back to the MSQ, wrapping things up in the Azim Steppe after completing the Nadam. Met with the members of the Mole tribe and got an instrument for a bard, which, maybe I'll be one of those bards who puts on concerts in Limsa and Gridania and just starts playing music. Maybe I'll be one of those guys. Probably not, that seems like a lot of work. It's a lot of work being a musician IRL. I don't know if I want to put in the effort to be a musician in Final Fantasy XIV. I already put way too much leveling up into the bard class IRL, and I definitely made some cool music, and I definitely appreciate all the people I've met over the years through doing music. Being in a band is like a cheat code for getting friends and meeting all the famous people you want to meet, going on adventures. I wasn't planning on doing a plug so early in the video, but because it happened to come up in the natural course of conversation, I'll go ahead and mention this now. I've got a live stream coming up on May 30th where we're going to be ranking the songs on my band's first 2 albums. And what's interesting is that I did a poll on my Discord recently, and there's a 50-50 split between what is the most popular content among my Discord people. So the most commonly viewed content of people on my Discord server are Greg's 14 Adventures and my music. So I've got a bunch of people around my Discord because they like Final Fantasy, and a bunch of people who are on my Discord because they like my music, and then just like seeing the two groups interact and talk with each other, and then seeing fans of my music try Final Fantasy for the first time is really, really cool. Yeah, so two of the members of my Discord, Cass and Zaphod, who again are mainly there because they're fans of my music, they've actually started playing Final Fantasy for the first time because of the Discord server and my recommendation. So Cass is playing Final Fantasy VI as their first Final Fantasy, and Zaphod is playing Final Fantasy VII as their first Final Fantasy. And so it's really cool that just like fans of the music I've made are checking out Final Fantasy because of the content that I do and just the conversations they've had with me about the games. That's really awesome. And it's really, interesting how people just know me for different things. So to some people, I'm like, oh, he's the guy who made that Final Fantasy XI video. And to some people, I'm like Greg, the guy from Lipstick, that hair metal band from the 2010s that put out a couple really good albums. Like that is, it's very interesting the different ways that people know me. And like, Lipstick fans, like, I mean, I had a Lipstick fan tattoo my lyrics onto their arm. I've gotten fan art, I've gotten gifts in the mail from Lipstick fans. So like, we were a band that never really, quote unquote, made it, but the fans that we have are just like absolutely incredible. And I love, getting to talk with them and stuff. And so we're doing a fun live stream ranking the songs on the first two albums. And I think that's going to be really fun for fans of the band. And basically, everybody is invited to participate. If you want to send me in your ranking of the songs from the two albums, my email is in the description. Just shoot me over your ranking after listening to them. And then we're adding up everyone's collective votes to decide where the songs rank. I don't really push my music on Greg's 14 Adventures just because that's not really the point of these videos. And I'm not trying to do the, hook you in with my Final Fantasy content to get you to listen to my band, which I know that a lot of content creators will do that. They'll try to hook you in with the content that's related to media that you like to get you to check out their original creative works, which I did do for a number of years. Full disclosure, I had a podcast that basically did that. But in general, I try to only mention my bands in Greg's 14 Adventures if it's relevant to the discussion, and it happened to naturally come up. So yeah, if you want to check out that live stream, I'll have the link in the description and info to send me your song rankings if you're so interested. I was once described by another musician as shonen glam, so like a combination of shonen anime and glam rock. So if that sounds fun to you, check it out. But yeah, TLDR, I don't know if I'm going to learn how to be a bard in Final Fantasy XIV and how to play songs because I already put in so much time IRL, I don't know if I want to do that in 14. That was a tangent. But yeah, after that, I got the ability to finally fly in the Azim Steppe and explore the areas that I hadn't been to yet and found a place called Doro Isla, which is mysteriously empty, so I wonder what the deal is with that place. But then after that, we've got to wrap up and, say our goodbyes to the tribes of the Azim Steppe and also confirm, like, hey, if we need help fighting, you're down to help us, right? And so we go and meet with the Ornair, and I realized, like, oh shoot, I think Magnai is an incel, and maybe that's his issue, is just he is so angry that he can't get a girlfriend. Because it seems like he kind of has the hots for Serena, and then she's just, like, not interested. And so it's like, is Magnai just busy listening to Andrew Tate all the time? Just like, yeah, just like act really macho. Like, tell women you don't respect them. That's the way to get dates. Poor Magnai, stuck in the manosphere. But yeah, so we visit the Ornair, we visit the Dothral, and then the barrier is removed between the Azim Steppe and northern Yanghua, and we are able to fill out the rest of the map in northern Yanghua. So then we return to the House of the Fierce and reunite with our allies. And Alphinaud reveals his plan of utilizing our different forces, the Confederacy, the tribes of the Azim Steppe, the people of Doma, and the role each of them are going to play in the liberation of Doma from the Empire. Okay, so the plan is Lys and the Domans are going to conduct a series of raids around Imperial targets through the surrounding area to gather their attention. And then the tribes of the Azim Steppe are going to launch a surprise attack on Doma Castle's airborne defenses, while Alice and Alphinaud, along with a bunch of ninja, are going to infiltrate the moon gates to disable the Magitech field generators in the area. And then the Confederate and Kojins will go through the One River to bombard Doma Castle while sailing west towards the Doman Enclave to basically take hostage Doman citizens and claim them as their own. While the Doman Liberation Front, as led by Hien and the Warrior of Light, storm Doma Castle, is Alphinaud's plan. But before we can execute that plan, Alphinaud needs a parcel from Sid explaining how to disable the Magitech field generators, and so we go back to Kugane to pick up the parcel. but unfortunately the parcel that Tatar received got mixed up with one for the Shikase Gumi, and so after finding an overworked postman and trading for the correct mail, it's time to head back to the House of the Fierce, give Alphinaud the docks, and finally invade Doma Castle, but not really. Of course, we've got to slow down the pacing again and do some other things before we actually get to the actual mission. I think I am finally starting to get to the point where Stormblood's pace is like, yeah, okay, we're dragging this out just a little bit. Where before it was like, okay, whatever, I'm soaking in the world, the characters, I'm learning about the cultures, but now it's like, okay, it's time to move, it's time to get this thing done, and then we're still delay. It's like, it's starting to feel like an MMO with how much barriers are being put in between you and just moving the story forward. The stereotypes I had about MMOs before playing them are basically happened with the grind of the quest, not the grind of like having to do a bunch of battles to level up, but the grind of just like, hey, we're going to delay this story happening for reasons. And also, once I went back to Kugane for this little excursion, it made me realize how underutilized Kugane is in this expansion. Like, Kugane is such a great city, and we have barely been there. As opposed to in A Realm Reborn, you spent a lot of time in the city-states, and even in Heavensward, you spent a lot of time in Ishgard. And so, given how great of a city Kugane is and how little of it you see in the expansion, it feels very underutilized. But anyway, as mentioned, the pacing has slowed down yet again. You'd think, okay, well, we got the documents explaining how to disable the Empire's defenses. We're good to go, right? Nope, we've got some more filler. We've got to go help Alice look out for some Imperials, doing a scouting mission. And this is a filler that does at least have, like, it's like the Naruto filler where it's mostly filler, but then there's one canon scene that's really important, and so you can't skip the filler episodes, or you have to at least watch that, like, 10-minute scene. This is that situation where we end up finding an Imperial who has memories of Yotsuyu as a child and lets us see some of Yotsuyu's backstory, where basically she is sold off to the Imperials, but sold off to be like a child bride. And so that is an important canon scene in this otherwise delay quest. Okay, so now we're ready to invade Doma Castle, right? Nope. Lise needs help getting armor for the people of Namai because we don't have armor. We're not prepared yet, despite all this build up to this battle. Like, hey, we need some armor for this battle we're about to do. Like, what? We don't have armor yet. I understand, like they're lacking for resources and they're just struggling to figure things out, but that just seems like in terms of the order of things you're doing on your list, that should be a bit earlier than like the day before the attack. Like, oh shoot, we got to get some armor. But yeah, so Lise needs help getting armor for the people from Namai, so we go back and see Issei. And yeah, this is, according to my notes say I was starting to get annoyed with the pacing here. So we need someone to help us make some armor, so then we meet with a guy who looks like Xehanort and laughs a ton. It's like, alright, cool, Kingdom Hearts crossover, nice. And so we help Xehanort get materials for armor, and he has a renewed resolve to move past his cynicism to help Doma and be friends with his buddy Ericus again. And so we're ready to finally do this mission, right? Nope. No, we have to go and scout Doma Castle with Hien so he can, like, reflect upon his life and have a cool, dramatic moment. Which, like, okay, this is fair. This is the kind of thing you do before a battle where, like, you have, like, a nice character beat. I'm fine with this. This is good. But then, while viewing Doma Castle, Hien gets an idea to adjust Alphinaud's plan and suggests that the Kojin flood the castle to basically put the Empire even more on their back foot and force Yotsuyu into the highest levels of the keep so that they can basically surround her and take the castle and defeat the Empire. And Gosetsu is against this plan because, like, oh, that's going to destroy the symbol of the people. But Hien argues that people are more important than symbols of the people. And, sometimes you got to tear down the old in order to do what is best for society. And so then we get a cool little scene of the night before the attack where we have a quick talk with Lise, and we see a cute scene of the twins sleeping next to each other, passing out from exhaustion. And then we stay up drinking all night with Gosetsu and Hien, and I'm actually recording this on St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day, listen to Thin Lizzy. Oh man, do I do another shameless plug? You know what? Sure, why not? Thin Lizzy is a great band, one of the most underrated classic rock bands of all time. Phil Lynott, half black, half Irish, half socialist, half Catholic. Yeah, so Phil Lynott is a half black, half Irish bassist frontman for the classic rock band Thin Lizzy, who is also very Catholic and very socialist, and is one of the great songwriters of classic rock. He's basically, in a very reductive sense, sort of a hard rock version of Bruce Springsteen. And their catalog is extremely excellent and worth diving into. And I have been doing reactions to the entire Thin Lizzy catalog on this channel on Thursdays, which we're almost done with. But if you want to check out one of the greatest classic rock bands, Thin Lizzy. They are the greatest rock band in Irish history, and you should check them out because they're quite good. Anyway, now that I'm shamelessly plugging a band that isn't mine because of St. Patrick's Day and drinking, yeah, go listen to Thin Lizzy, Whiskey in the Jar. But yeah, after our night of drinking and sharing stories with Gosetsu and Hien, it's time for the morning after. The sun rises, and it's finally time to begin our strike. The Namai people and Lys attack a nearby Imperial outpost. The Zayla attack the aerial Magitech. The twins remove the Magitech barrier, allowing the Confederacy to go in and secure the Enclave, where the civilians live, and the Kogin breach the castle to allow the flooding to begin. Yotsuyu talks about how she had a procedure done on her brute, and I'm like, oh no, Grinwatch, she turned him into a monster, which is like really, really cruel. Like, Yotsuyu is just really heartless. The one character who is like completely loyal to her, she is willing to just mutate his body, and that's just like all kinds of awful. And just like immediately my mind jumped to like what kind of body horror the dude went through, and just like it just immediately made me uncomfortable. But yeah, then it was finally time to do the next dungeon in Stormblood, Doma Castle, with Ghiri, Gosetsu, and a random shaman as my party of NPCs. And this was a really great dungeon, excellent music. During the middle of the dungeon, my wife actually asked me for help with something, and so I had to find a safe spot to hide. One thing I dislike about the MMOs, and I know there's not necessarily a way of getting around it, is I don't like the lack of a pause button. And I know, like, when you're doing multiplayer, you can't just pause a dungeon in the middle of a fight. And I get that. But it makes 14 playing needing to be much more deliberate as to the time when you're playing 14 is like, hey, I'm really focusing on playing 14 and not doing something else right now. You know, other RPGs, like, if it's in the middle of a cutscene or in the middle of a fight, you just, like, you can do the pause button, and it's not a big deal. And even in cutscenes, you can walk away for a second, and that's not a big deal in 14. But sometimes you're unable to pause. And so, like, if my wife needs help with something and I'm doing something in 14, it is... I am missing the pause button in those moments. As much as I love Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV, there is a part of me that will be happy to be at the end of the current content and moving on to a non-live service game, because I do miss the pause button. I do miss the pause feature quite a bit. You know, online games have their advantages for the multiplayer, the social aspect, and for the ability to build upon a game, like continue to build upon it more and more and more and more. That is an advantage of live service versus a buy it, it's complete, it's done kind of game. And so I used to be very much against live service games, but I've seen the artistic merit that they have. And so I definitely love them at this point and really appreciate the artistry and craft. But again, pause button. Boy, do I miss it, especially in a fight. But yeah, the boss of the dungeon was Grinwat, who was not that difficult of a fight, but I made sure to keep myself at full health the entire time. I wasn't trusting random bullshit Final Fantasy XIV mechanics that would one-hit kill me, so I'm like, okay, keep your health really high up this whole time, but beat him without much issue. And then after being in the dungeon, we got a scene with Yotsuyu where we get even more of her backstory, where we find out that she was sold into slavery, had an abusive husband, was forced to work as a sex worker against her will for a number of years, and became very bitter and cold, and eventually became a spy for the Empire. And one day when she saw a Doman being in the road, sobbing with despair, she felt elation and realized that she was a Dom and just got satisfaction. You know, she's a sadist. She gets satisfaction in the pain of others, probably as a way of dealing with the trauma of all the pain that she has been dealt. You know, the old saying, hurt people hurt people. And so it's not enough to make you want to forgive her actions, but I think you do feel a level of sympathy for Yotsuyu here. Or, you know, maybe I do. As my life philosophy has developed over the years, I'm very much a person who has a lot of sympathy and grace for people. So I'm a vegetarian, but I also try to avoid killing animals if I can. So if there is a mouse in the house, I will try to capture it with non-lethal means. If there's like a spider, I will try not to crush the spider. I will try to take the spider outside. But then in the case of fleas, you have no choice but to kill them in order to protect those that you care about. So to protect my cats, I have to kill the fleas. And so when it comes to protecting people or, creatures I care about, I will kill if I need to, but that is a last resort. So it's like, Batman has the no cure rule. I have the, try the non-violent solution first, show mercy first, but, if you have no other route, then you might have to kill. Like, Goku versus Frieza, where he's like willing to show Frieza mercy, on the off chance that Frieza might change, despite Frieza's crimes. But then ultimately, when he's left with no choice, he is willing to kill Frieza. And so I think that's where I have ultimately come down over the years, where I try to be a hard pacifist, but sometimes you don't have a choice. So in the case of a character like Yotsuyu, I can understand having sympathy, but then it might still be the correct choice to kill a villainous character if they're going to hurt people. Even if you understand what caused their hurt, have sympathy for their hurt, it still might be better to just take them down. But yeah, so the walls of Doma Castle start to crumble, and it's revealed that it was her plan to have all of us die here, and that she was just, giving us her backstory to distract us long enough for the castle walls to come crumbling down. Yotsuyu tries to shoot Hien, but like a badass, he cuts the bullet in half and then cuts her down. And the ceiling ends up falling down, but Gosetsu catches it to save the party. But while struggling to hold it up, Yotsuyu shoots Gosetsu. And we have a really long talk with Gosetsu, like way too long before we finally end up leaving. But we're like, no, we can't leave you. Like, no, please leave. No, we can't leave you. Seriously, leave. I can't hold this forever. Like, we talked to him for what feels like longer than we should when we really need to get out of there. But we do get out of there, and the walls come crumbling down atop of Yotsuyu and Gosetsu. And I know they don't die because of spoilers. And in general, I've been avoiding spoilers about Final Fantasy XIV, mainly for the sake of these vlogs. In general, I don't mind spoilers, but for the sake of making these vlogs more interesting, I have been actively avoiding spoilers. But because I had seen 14 reviews years ago, I do remember that Yotsuyu and Gosetsu survive this, and that they do stuff together in the patch content, where I think Yotsuyu loses her memory, and then gains it back again, and then I think dies. And I don't remember the fate of Gosetsu and all of that. But I think Gosetsu was like her traveling companion for a bit, and then I don't remember if Gosetsu lives or not. I hope he does. But I'm really curious to see how they survive this, because I don't see how that happens. So I'm definitely interested to see what the story justification is for that when we get around to seeing them again. But yeah, then I was doing some duties to earn some gil, and did the Nidhogg fight at the end of the Heaven's Word patch content with a party of other players, which was the first time I did it with a party of other players. The only other time I did the fight was solo, unsynced, which was actually easier because we ended up wiping twice when fighting Nidhogg this time. But it was fun finally getting to do that fight as intended with a party of other players. But I think I actually preferred it solo. I thought it was more epic that way. But yeah, then I went back to the MSQ because the reason I did those duties was 1, to earn gil, and 2, because I thought that I wanted to see this scene in the daytime, and it was nighttime, so I wanted to enjoy the cutscenes with the sun in the background. Soraban searches for signs of Gosetsu but can't find any, and so we're like, we can't find a body, and so does that mean he's dead and so buried under rubble that we can't find him, or did he survive? I mean, I know, spoilers, he survives, but Soraban can't find Gosetsu, and so we're all in mourning. But Hien then gives a victory speech to the Domans in the Enclave, and it's very inspiring, very cool. It's very awesome that we finally have liberated Doma after all these years. It does feel a bit wild that we, basically liberated Doma with, a single battle. That's not really how liberation and politics work, but you know what? For the sake of Final Fantasy XIV and moving this plot along, sure, we liberated Doma. But yeah, then after the victory speech, I wandered around the Enclave for a little bit, and I wondered, is this going to be an area you end up rebuilding? I wonder if there's going to be a rebuilding mechanic in the Enclave. That just seems like, that's the vibe I got from it. And I also thought it was interesting that Serena seems to like Hien, and, talked about the sun and the moon and, whether or not they can meet. I'm like, you know what, they'd be a cute couple. I could ship them. Yeah, that's good. Works for me. Hopefully those kids end up together. But yeah, the party decides to make an Irish exit. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Leave without saying goodbye because we've got to get back to Gyr Abania to free Alamigo after all this time. And so we return to Kugane to prepare for our trip back to Eorzea. And man, I really hope we spend more time in Kugane in the patch quest or something, because again, it feels really underutilized and we're getting near the end of the expansion. I've got my big master to-do list of Essential 14 content, and I think I might add the Kugane side quests onto that list just to hang out in Kugane more, because as great of a city as that is, it is not being utilized much at all in Stormblood. We were there for a chapter, we had some time in Kugane, but since then, we haven't really gone back. And granted, there hasn't been much of a narrative reason to go back. You know, so I'm like, hey, pick up this package from Tataru. But like, otherwise, yeah, really underutilized for how great of a city it is. So yeah, there might be a vlog or two about Kugane side quests. But yeah, Tataru says that she's going to stay in Kugane to serve as a mediator between the Scions and the different factions of the East. Basically good to have somebody on the ground who we can trust rather than Hancock to negotiate with people. And so as we're about to leave and go back to Eorzea, Kian comes to say goodbye to us, thank us for her help, and to offer to help us with freeing the Alamegans once the Domans get things in order. And Ghiri actually ends up coming along with us, back to Eorzea, wrapping things up in the east, and finally returning to the Alamegan plot. And before I get into the rest of what I did in 14 this week, this is the mid-video call to action. This is the part of the video where I ask you to please like the video, comment on the video, tell me your thoughts on this part of Stormblood, subscribe to the channel. You know, all of that helps support these videos. Basically, these videos, they get like the tiniest bit of revenue for me, and that basically pays for my 14 sub. So, you know, I'm not, Mr. Moneybags YouTuber over here, but like, hey, if you like the video and share the video, comment, that just helps more people see it, and then helps me get money for my 14 sub and groceries. You know, it's like, PBS. You are the sponsors of this video. You in the comments help these videos continue to get made every week. So if you like these, that's the best way to support. Just like, share, comment, subscribe. That just helps these videos get made. And also feel free to join my Discord server if you want to come and chat with me more. The main rules are just like, don't be a jerk, and, keep it safe for work, PG-13. So like in terms of like graphic imagery and stuff. So like, don't post something that like if somebody's boss walks by, they're going to get them in trouble. And if you really like need to do it for like discussing like a story reason or something, do like a content warning spoiler. But otherwise, yeah, it's a chill place to hang out. Would love to have you there. All right, mid-video call to action over. So then we cut to a scene of Xenos being ruthless yet again, and he gives Fordola a new weapon, a gunblade, and we find out that Kryl has been kidnapped by the Empire. And so back in Limsa Lominsa, Alphinaud comments on how much Limsa sucks in comparison to new expansion areas. Ghiri plans to go off to the Rising Stones to share word of our victory in Doma to the Doman refugees. But Merowib informs her that Kryl has been kidnapped, because even though we, the players, saw that in that last cutscene, the party had to be informed. And so we go back to Castrum Oriens to touch base with everybody, and Arenval discusses how the Echo distracted him from protecting Kryl because he got a vision in the middle of a fight with the Empire, and that unfortunately made him less useful in the fight, and Kryl ended up getting kidnapped because of that. And I had totally forgotten that this guy had the Echo. I know he was basically a minor character in A Realm Reborn, and was getting a lot more screen time in Stormblood. I have fallen victim to the Final Fantasy XIV has so many characters that I forgot who this character was. And so I did have to look him up on the wiki. I'm just like, who is this guy again? This guy with the Echo who seems like he should be more important than he is? Okay, got it. I think when I started seeing him in like a lot of Stormblood cutscenes early on, I thought that he was going to be like a traitor or something. And no, it just turns out like, oh, he was just a character I forgot about. And then they were trying to make him more prominent, so they just shoved him in front of more cutscenes. But yeah, so we meet with Conrad, Pippin, Raban, and Monago to discuss our plan of taking Castrum Veladania, finally, after all this time. And so the plan is to basically distract the Empire's forces by spreading them out, and then casting a glamour on the flag of the Castrum to make them think that we've taken it, so that the different spread out factions of the Empire's forces flee, because they'll have no idea that we haven't actually taken the Castrum. And they're just like, oh shoot, their forces are stronger than we thought. So that's the plan. Which honestly is like, that's a pretty solid plan. I'm behind that. But before we go and take the Castrum, we spent a little bit of time in Ralgar's Reach before the mission, touching base with the people there, chatting with them, and the old music is back, the spirits are lifted, things are looking good again, the Reach has been rebuilt. And this is the kind of quote-unquote filler I don't mind. I think it's good to have the happy music back. It's good to talk with these people after being away for so long. This is pacing that I'm fine with. I thought that was actually quite good, and it gave me the warm fuzzies to finally be back in Ralgar's Reach with the old music. It was nice. Conrad talks about wanting Lise to be his successor, which likely means that she's going to stop being a Scion after this expansion. So basically, she's going to be super important in this expansion and then take a back seat for the rest of 14 and maybe making like a huge appearance in Endwalker or something. That is my hunch. And basically in the way that Final Fantasy XI has expansion girls, like Prish in Chains of Pamathia, Lillicet in Wings of the Goddess, Lise is the expansion girl of Stormblood. That's the vibe I'm getting is what they're going to do with her character. But yeah, then after this, it's finally time to do a solo instance duty and invade Castrum Veladania, which, is kind of funny in retrospect because that was the mission we were supposed to do way back in the beginning of Stormblood. And so if you think of everything else in Stormblood as like anime filler, it's a really funny way to look at Stormblood of like all of this was anime filler before this fight. And just like in the manga, Mefred dies in this battle instead. But all the rest of this has just been anime filler. That's it's a really funny way to look at this because like, oh, we're finally getting to that mission after all this time. My notes here also say Minago has a pet bird named Abda. I hope this bird will be okay. That is in my notes. Which, spoilers, she is. But anyway, the instance duty is pretty easy. Fight off some Imperials and then Fordola. It's easy enough and everything goes according to plan. It's actually been really weird how many things in Stormblood lately have just been going according to plan, given how much the plans fell apart early in Stormblood. I wonder how much longer things are going to keep going according to plan for the rest of this expansion, or if it's just going to be smooth sailing throughout out. But yeah, things go according to plan. We use a glamour to change the flag of the castrum, and Fordola knows it's a trick, but she can't convince her men of this, and she basically has to concede defeat. She mentions snakes and traitors, and it makes me wonder, that's kind of sus. She talked about the Anatas because I thought they were on our side. But still, victory is ours, and we're finally able to cross the bridge and make our way to Minago's village, the Pyrian Stones. And of course, periodically I had to stop what I was doing in the MSQ to do some Ether Current quests and explore the map for Ether Currents. But at the Pyrian Stones, we meet with a member of the Vira Anata who seek our help. Another tribe of the Anata, the Qualina, who had previously made a peace pact with the Empire, had one of their own taken by Fordola's men. Fordola, just being all kinds of racist, just does not know the difference between the Anata tribes, and just took one of the Qualina prisoner, and the prisoner ended up getting killed when the tribe tried to rescue her. And the mother of that Anata, in her grief, summoned a primal, Sri Lakshmi. And so we make our way over to the Qualina and try to reason with them, which Alice is super impassioned about, remembering the tragedy of Gabu, but it's to no avail, and so we need to do a primal boss fight. And this one had pretty interesting mechanics, like us controlling the AoE and trying to like move and position ourselves to not hurt other players. That was pretty cool. And there was a really epic cutscene mid-fight that had the strong cinematic quality to it, which I'd seen stuff like this in like 14 reviews before, and I was wondering when I would get to something that had this kind of quality, which I feel is going to become more and more common as I play the rest of 14, but it was very cool to see. There is a special mechanic called Vril, which I wasn't really sure how to use, but I tried it and it seemed like it deflected major attacks. I got knocked out a few times during the fight, so it was not my best showing, but I still got a player commendation because, they recognized I was trying, and the music was really cool. It was a cool fight. Although I will say that this feels a lot less epic than what we were doing in Doma, and so even though the bait and switch of what happened in Stormblood was like maybe the coolest part of the story, and maybe of all of Final Fantasy XIV thus far, I wonder if it might have been better to just do all the Alamigo stuff first and then do all the Doman stuff, because I was really vibing with the Doman stuff much more, and this is solid and good, but it's been a bit more predictable Final Fantasy XIV storytelling since we've gotten back into Alamigan territory, so I'm kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop or something unexpected to happen. But yeah, so after the boss fight, my notes here say, we try to convince people that their religion is wrong, and surprisingly that doesn't work. Oh, my notes are so snarky this week. But yeah, that totally works. Just tell people that their faith is wrong, and then they'll just stop believing that. That works on Facebook, right? Such snarky notes. But then we cut to a scene with Fordola and Xenos, and I'm thinking Fordola has no reason to survive this confrontation with Xenos. He has killed people for far less, and it's all about power is all that matters, and you better not be weak, and if you fail, I'm going to kill you. And so I'm wondering, okay, what is the justification they're going to have for how Fordola survives this? Because they're going to have her survive. They've given her way too much screen time. What are they going to do to justify her surviving this? And so Fordola is ready to die, but Xenos is willing to let her live. She's willing to Frankenstein herself, much like Grinwat, to become more powerful. So all right, we're going to get Frankenstein Fordola. I wonder what kind of monstrosity she is going to become. I'm interested to see where this goes. And as I was talking about reordering Stormblood, I think you maybe did need to have Grinwat transform first, so that you could have that expectation in your mind and wondering what Fordola is going to come out on the other side of a transformation. And so I think it's more of a matter of, in terms of the order I want Stormblood to go, I want the less cool stuff at the beginning and then just have nothing but cool stuff later. Not that last Primal fight wasn't cool, but Primal fight feels almost standard and pedantic compared to a lot of the other things we've been doing. And it just feels like a really weird follow-up to how epic freeing Doma was. Now it's like, okay, yeah, we're just going to, fight the Empire at this castrum and do a primal fight. It just feels like, okay, now we're back to normal. Back to the status quo of 14 as opposed to breaking the status quo. But yeah, so then the party regroups at the village, has a feast, and Leto and Lys have a heart-to-heart. And Lys questions why the gods, who are supposed to, love their children, allow suffering. And Leto says there's no justice, just us, which is basically the philosophy I generally have. I know so many people who are religious who just say, it's God's will and, this is, what God wants, and you just have to accept it. And I think there is something healthy about acceptance. But I think the JRPG theme of Defying Fate is actually a really important one, because the only way things get better is if you refuse to accept the status quo and say, this thing that everybody has just accepted is wrong, and we need to try to change it. And even if it's, very hard to change, you need to try. And so a lot of people write off that trope, particularly I love the guys, but the guys from Resin Arc are not a fan of the trope of the JRPG heroes trying to defy fate. I think in a recent podcast, Kaysen said, you're not as clever as you think you are, and talk about Tetsuya Nomura and his themes of Defying Fate. And, again, I love and respect the guys, but I would say, I think their dismissal of that is, I think, not as clever as they think it is, in the sense that the theme of Defying Fate and, defying the gods isn't purely just defying a deity. In the concept of, Japanese culture, the emperor is considered to be divine. And so, in that sense, defying a deity is also defying a governmental and political structure. And so I think there is a class angle that they're missing to this, in that it's not purely about defying, a deity. It is about defying a societal structure that demands you are put into your place, whether or not that place is fair. And to defy fate is to say that you should be able to take your own future in your own hands and build a better world and better society. And so I think they're missing that societal class aspect to their analysis of the themes of Defying Fate, and just viewing it as purely as God is good. And obviously they talk about the demiurge and the true God above the demiurge, but I think that's something that they're kind of missing in that analysis, that I think they should, consider that cultural context a bit more, and I think they might find more to appreciate. I think everybody has their intellectual blind spots, and I think there are great guys who do great analysis, but I think the defying of the gods, I think, is very useful in terms of a view of power structures. And I think that analogy is, extremely important in Japanese culture for that reason. And so I do think there is, something to be said about being healthy. It's, accepting that there are certain things that you cannot change, but also understand that there are things that can change through your hard work, even if they might not change in your lifetime. The work of civil rights leaders who, will continue to push hard for the betterment of society. And they might not ever see the better society that they dreamed of, but they keep pushing, and they put in the work so that the next generation can move a little bit forward, and then the generation after that can move a little bit forward, and you keep doing it because it is ultimately a never-ending struggle to get to that better place. But eventually, you do get to better places. The work never ends, but that doesn't mean that you don't do the work. And, I think that is sort of a fundamental difference in philosophy between a conservative and a leftist. A conservative will be nope, keep things the same. They've been that way for however long for a reason. Don't mess with it. And a leftist is but no, you can make it better. And we've seen that over time. We've moved from serfdom and slavery, into, a capitalist society, which was better than serfdom and slavery, but there's still room to improve. You don't just stop, you keep improving. So yeah, no justice, just us. Make the world a better place yourself. Don't give up. Don't beat yourself up over, not being able to topple, all the corrupt power structures in the world overnight by yourself. You obviously can't do that. It involves collective action, except that there are things that you can't change, but also, don't stop trying to make the world a better place either. But yeah, after that, I got all the ether currents in the area, filled out the rest of the map, and then made our way to Ghiri, which has a cool dragon-like crystal. Raban says our next course of action is to take down Specula Impetoris, a tower that is hard to penetrate from the north, but is weak to the south. And that is all the 14 playing I got in this week. Well, I mean, not completely true because I'm going to be playing with Summoner Jobin tonight, but this is already a very long vlog. The recording session for this vlog is at an hour and 13 minutes unedited. So I'll see how long it is after I edit and trim out like pauses and coughs and stuff, but it's already been a long recording session. Still need to make myself some breakfast before work. But yeah, there are only 22 quests left in Stormblood proper before I get to the patch quests, and I imagine some of these quests are going to be longer ones. And so next week, I'll probably have a shorter vlog because there's a new Another Eden update that I believe is coming out on Thursday that I'm going to want to play through. And I believe that is the last part of the An Ode to Origin storyline, so I'll probably talk about that in the vlog, along with the upcoming seasonal event, the Hatching Tide. I'm going to be playing that with Summoner Jobin and Solo, so I'll probably talk about that next week. And I'll talk about the plan that Summoner Jobin and I did on St. Patrick's Day and talk about whatever misadventures we got into. But yeah, I'm hoping to get Stormblood done in the next couple vlogs because I have a couple friends on my Discord who I want to have chats with about Stormblood and do that as sort of special interview discussion episodes of Greg's 14 Adventures, talk with other 14 players. So that'll be coming up. But yeah, I'm getting close to the end of Stormblood, and I'm really excited to see the grand finale to, the Alamegan storyline, where this all ends up. I mean, there is a lot of stuff in this vlog, and I would say I loved a lot of it. The Doman stuff, I think, has been the peak of Stormblood for me, and I haven't been as into the Alamegan storyline, aside from that incredible bait and switch. I do like Monago a lot as a character. I do like seeing Lisa's journey, but I think the areas of Gyr Abania have been sort of less interesting. It's just like, all right, we got like desert. I've never been like big into deserts in video games and storytelling. Not as much my vibe. Maybe one reason why 12 didn't vibe with me as much. And so, Stormblood is on a slight downturn. I'm still enjoying it, but it's not as engaging as the Doman stuff for me. But I'm really hoping that it ends strong and I end up loving the finale of Stormblood. Lots of great stuff this week, just not as great as what came before, at least for me. But I've heard from many people that this is the part of the story where Stormblood finally picks up, so I'm definitely interested to see what happens next. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do the liking, commenting, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video and in the comments. Bye, everyone.